everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made for Mixed Media Mayhem. This week we are scrap lifting one of my favorite scrapbookers. We're using a layout from Rebecca Moore of Precious Pages Papercraft. If you are not familiar with Rebecca Moore's work, I recommend that you take a look at her Instagram or her YouTube channel. She is an amazing scrapbooker, and I have never seen a layout from her that I didn't like, so I was super excited to have the opportunity to use one of her layouts to inspire a layout that I'm making. I just love the rosettes that Rebecca had on her layout, so I decided to do the same thing for my layout. So I cut some strips of paper. I used an Echo Park collection called Party Time. It's a brightly colored party themed collection. I have two rosettes that I used 1-inch strips to make. I have one that I used 1¼ inch strips to make, and one that I used 1½ inch strips to make. I scored the strips at 1/4 inch intervals, and then I folded them back and forth, attached the two ends together, and now I'm using a hot glue gun and some small round pieces of cardstock to secure them into their rosette shape. To make rosettes quickly and easily, I think you need a really quick drying adhesive, and for me, the hot glue gun is the best way to go. I don't often use a hot glue gun. I'm not great with the hot glue gun. I very frequently will burn my fingers a little bit on it, but I do use it when making rosettes. So now I have the rosettes made, although I'm going to decide what centers to put on them in a little while. And now I'm going to work on my photos. I decided to use 2 photos. Rebecca used 3, but I had these 2 photos that I was looking to scrapbook. I'm trying to get a particular album done from quite a few years ago, and so I thought I would use those 2 photos. I mounted them on white paper and then on a strip of patterned black dotted paper. And now I'm adding the centers to the rosettes. I punched out some pattern paper from that same Echo Park collection. As I was adding the pink centers to these rosettes, I was thinking that they felt a little flimsy, and I didn't like the way they got a little wrinkled when I glued them down to the rosettes. So for the larger rosettes, I first cut out or punched out, I should say, a piece of white cardstock, and then I attached down the piece of pattern paper over that. And then once I was done with the larger rosettes, I went back to the smaller ones and I added some white cardstock to those, and I used some new centers. So that's why the color of the center of the smaller rosettes changes. So now the rosettes are all done. I have a piece of thick white cardstock in the background. I put some gesso on it, and I have my strip of photos, and I'm going to try to figure out where I'm going to put all of these larger elements. In Rebecca's layout, she has the rosettes behind the photos. I'm going to layer the rosettes on top of the photos. I'm also, like Rebecca, going to do some mixed media in the background. So right now, I'm just tracing behind those circles and the strip of photos just very lightly, and I'm making the outline smaller than the actual outline so that the pencil lines won't show later on. And then that's going to let me know where I should put my mixed media. Before I get started on the mixed media though, I wanted to add another piece of paper behind that strip of photos. For the mixed media background, I picked out 2 different colors of Lindy's Starburst sprays. I picked out Ramblin' Rose Pink and also Cotton Candy Pink. I started off with the Cotton Candy Pink, and I never ended up using the Ramblin' Rose Pink because I didn't think that this color pink matched the pink in the pattern papers as much as I would like it to, and I ended up picking out a 3rd color called Wild Honeysuckle Coral because there was a hint of coral in that pattern paper, and I thought that the Wild Honeysuckle Coral was a little bit closer to that color. But right now I started out with the Cotton Candy Pink, and I'm using the packaging technique, and I am placing the color around the outside of those circles that I drew, and then also around the outside of where I know the strip of photos is going to go. So now this is where I start adding that second color, and it looks a little bold, but when it dries, I think that it looks fine. It's much more subtle, and you'll see that in a little while. And even though it looks like a big explosion of color right now, once I put all the elements back on the page, the mixed media is really pretty subtle on this layout. Not a ton of it is visible, but enough of it to be able to see the color in the background. I noticed that Rebecca has a lot of splatters on her layout, so I wanted to add a lot of splatters to my layout. I didn't have a roll of paper towel handy, not sure where my roll of paper towel went to, but I did have a couple of pieces, so I used the paper towel to pick up some of the extra color that was on the page. And now I'm adding even more splatters, and I repeat the process of putting the paper towel on top of the color and removing the excess spray. There were a couple of stray splatters, mainly on the left-hand side of the layout, that I wasn't crazy about. They're very easy to remove. First, I always try to use a wet paper towel and rub them off, which is usually not hard to do if the background is gessoed. But if they don't come off, then I'll use some gesso, and I will use some gesso in a little while. First, I put some droplets of water over the area that I have the sprays on, and then I use a paper towel to pick up the water, and that lifts up some of the color, not all of it, just a little bit, just enough to make kind of a cool water droplet effect in the background. That's one of my favorite things to do with mixed media backgrounds. Now I'm adding some white splatters. I use watered down white acrylic paint, and I keep it ready because I love to put splatters, white splatters especially, on my layouts. I put a lot of white splatters on the background, and then I knew I was going to have to leave for a little while, and so I let the acrylic paint air dry. Sometimes I'll try to dry it with my heat tool, but I always think that acrylic paint comes out better when it's left to dry on its own. So there were, like I said, a couple of little spots that I wanted to cover up or at least fade out a little bit. So I'm using some white gesso now and one of my old brushes. Even though I wanted to take away some of the splatters, I wanted to add a few more a little bit closer to the area of color, so I just added a couple more. I allow the background to dry, and now the mixed media is complete. I attach down my photos, and now I have the rosettes back where I had them before, and of course I have those pencil lines, so I know exactly where to put them. And now I'm using some gel glue on the back of them to hold them down to the layout. And I do feel that the mixed media looks a lot more subtle than it did before, and I think there's just enough showing around the edges of the rosettes and the strip of photos to make the background a little bit interesting. I am using the sticker sheet from the Echo Park collection, and I'm spelling out 2015, and I'm putting that year in the same place that Rebecca put the year in her layout. I wanted to tuck a few items behind the rosettes, so I picked out some birthday themed items because this is a birthday page for my younger daughter Julia when she turned 15. So I have some candles, some birthday candles on the left-hand side of the layout. I have a little sentiment that says hip hip hooray. We were in the part of the restaurant that was a store where they had a lot of candy for sale, so they had a lot of jars of candy, so I included a jar of candy. I thought that was perfect that that was on the sticker sheet. I'm using some stars from a Dollar Tree sticker pack, those teal stars that you see, and I spread those around the layout. And now I'm adding a couple more of the stars from the Echo Park sticker sheet. They had them in a whole bunch of different colors, and because it's a birthday layout, I feel like you can put a lot of different colors on a layout and it looks very festive. There's a tab at the top of the strip of photos that says today, and the sentiment that says hip hip hooray. Those come from a Felicity Jane die cut shapes pack. It's called Jenny. I chose the title Celebrate. That was from the Echo Park sticker sheet as well. And I liked it because I thought it was appropriate for this layout. But I also like the way the letters are written in black. I like the way that balances out the 2015 at the top and the pattern paper behind the strip of photos. I added a couple more stickers from that same sheet. I punched a sentiment out of another sticker that says, "It's your day." I used a circular punch and then I put it in the center of the rosette. And then I also used Yay and that colorful spinner that's to the left of the candles. Then I found I had these birthday themed paper house stickers, and I thought that there were a couple of stickers on there that just kind of finished off the layout. They had some cupcakes, so I put those in the centers of the two smaller rosettes. I found that really cute lollipop on that sticker sheet. I really love that. I love the way it had a bow on it. And then there was a layered sticker, and I pulled the two layers apart and I used one of the blue circles in the center of the blue rosette, and then I put the other layer to the right of the large pink rosette. And now I'm adding some jewels to the layout. One of the things I love about birthday layouts is how you could get very festive and very blingy, kind of like Christmas layouts, and you can add a lot of bling to the layout. So that's what I'm doing. I'm just using some traditional rhinestones, and I chose those because there are some small rhinestones on those cupcakes, and I thought that I would just kind of continue that around the page. And I'm using 3 different sizes of these self-adhesive rhinestones, and I place them in the centers of some of the embellishments, and I also cluster them around the outside of the rosettes and the strip of photos. I wanted to add some photo corners, something that I love to do, so I used my EK Success scalloped photo corner punch, and I punched out some pink photo corners, and I just put them in 3 of the corners just to add a little bit of color. I moved that lollipop around the layout a little bit, and after attaching down the photo corners, I decided to add a very tiny black enamel dot to each of them. And I'm finding that with these very, very tiny embellishments, I do like to have a set of tweezers handy to help me manipulate them and place them where I want them on the page. I layered up another tab behind the tab that I had at the top because you really couldn't see the border, and now this gives it a blue border that differentiates it from that background a little bit. I realized that I hadn't attached down that hip hip hooray sentiment, and then I went back and added a few more jewels around the page, and that completes the layout, and here are some close-ups. Thank you so very much for watching this video, everyone. I am so grateful that you took time out of your day to view this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it and maybe found something helpful or useful that you could use in your own scrapbooking pages. Please take a look in the description box. You'll find links to the channels of all the other scrapbookers who are following along with Mixed Media Mayhem. Thank you so much to Rebecca Moore for allowing us to use her beautiful layout as our inspiration this week. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.